Welcome to the Mixed Reception Podcast. I'm your host, Barrett Sigmund, and today we have special guest, Alfred Crane. What's
Hello,
up,
Barrett?
Alfred?
Not much, man. I'm ready to talk about 2019, even though it was last year.
And not only do you do improv, but you also have your own podcast, Performance Enhancing Films.
Yes.
And I was actually lucky enough to be a guest. We talked about Point Break, one of my favorite movies. I don't know when that podcast is coming out. When it does, I'll be sure to share it.
It should be in 2 episodes. We got one more, and then it'll be yours. So, Utah, you got 2 more.
Now, I hit you up a couple weeks ago. I said, I got to have you on the pod. What movie would you like to discuss? You gave me 2. Utah gave me 2. You said The Thing or Blade Runner. And I almost went with The Thing because The Thing is actually like one of my favorite movies ever. I was like, you know what? I'm going to hold off. I think I'm going to wait till Halloween to cover that one. But I was like, you know what, though? I haven't seen Blade Runner in a while. Like, let's do Blade Runner.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of your favorite movies.
It is. I've actually got one of the movie posters in my room.
So how did you hear about this movie?
I used to read a lot of science fiction magazines. One was called Starlog, and one was called, I think it was Cinefantastic, and it came out in 82. It was right around when Raiders of the Lost Ark and Return of the Jedi. It was between those. And I remember seeing pictures of it. I mean, it was R-rated, so I couldn't go see it at the theater. But I remember seeing these Corgi die-cast toys of the flying cars. And I thought they were pretty cool. And it just kind of grabbed me. But then I don't remember the first time I saw it, but when I did, I knew, hey, there's something in this movie that's like haunted me for the rest of my life. It's just been, I think I saw it on, might have been VHS or maybe on HBO. But I remember seeing it going, wow, this is brilliant. And it's just been one of the staples probably in my top 10 overall movies of all time.
Wow, top 10. So here's my experience with this movie. It is not one of my favorites. I didn't grow up on it. It was one of those movies I knew of, but I didn't watch it until probably like my early 20s. I think the first time I watched it, I want to say maybe like 9 or 10 years ago on Netflix, and it was a theatrical cut, which there's a ton of cuts, which we'll get into. And I don't even know if I finished it. I think I might have fallen asleep. And then I want to say maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I decided to give it another chance. I actually bought the Blu-ray, like the 25th anniversary that has like, it's got so many cuts. It's got like the theatrical cut, the work print, the international cut, the director's cut, the final cut. So I bought the Blu-ray with all those versions. I've only watched the final cut, but it's good to know that I have all those versions available if I ever do want to watch them. But yeah, it's one of those movies that I like and I respect, but I think it has a lot of problems. I don't know if I would call it a masterpiece. I mean, we're going to get into it, but it's a little slow, not a lot of action, and yeah, I didn't love it, and I've only seen the final cut. Maybe this was like the 3rd time watching it because I like I said, 5-6 years ago, I watched it. Before Blade Runner 2049 came out, I decided to rewatch it, which Blade Runner 2049, I got a hot take. I think it's a far superior movie. I don't know how you feel about it. But yeah, and then I rewatched it prior to this discussion. And I will say, I think I like it a little better every time I watch it. But yeah, it's a good movie. Just, I don't know. Is it a masterpiece? I don't know. Maybe a little overrated. We'll get into it. I like to start with reviews at the time.
Right.
So actually, it's kind of funny. We were thinking about doing The Thing. This movie actually came out the same day as The Thing.
Really? I did not know that. I knew it was the same year.
June 25th, 1982.
Wow.
And both movies did horrible at the box office, and critics hated them. I mean, and now they're considered classics. A lot of critics kind of felt like the plot took a backseat to the film's special effects. And I guess this movie was kind of marketed more as like an action and adventure movie. I mean, watching this movie, it's not really an action movie. Mm-hmm. There's only like 2 action sequences really like in the whole movie.
Right.
But yeah, people didn't like that. But others they acclaimed its complexity. A lot of reviewers at the time predicted it would stand the test of time, which, I mean, it does have this huge cult following. But some of the reviews at the time, I thought this one was funny. Sheila Benson, Los Angeles Times, called it Blade Crawler.
Huh.
I mean, I can see that. It's a very slow movie. This one was another favorite. I like this review a lot. Pat Berman, The State and Columbia Record, described it as science fiction pornography. I mean, what the fuck does that mean?
I have no idea.
Well, I guess a lot of people thought this movie was just like kind of all style, no substance, much like a porno. I mean, the porno is not really like a plot or a story. It's just fucking.
Right.
Pauline Kael, The New Yorker. She praised Blade Runner as worthy of a place in film history for its distinctive sci-fi vision, yet criticized the film's lack of development in human terms. I kind of agree. Roger Ebert, Chicago Sun-Times, gave it 3 out of 4. He praised the visuals of both the original and the director's cut and recommended it for that reason. However, he found the human story cliched and a little thin. But later, he added the final cut to his great movies list. In 1993, selected for preservation in the U.S. National Film Registry by the Library of Congress. Rotten Tomatoes, critics, 90%. Audience, 91%. Consensus, misunderstood when it first hit theaters. The influence of Ridley Scott's mysterious neo-noir Blade Runner has deepened with time. A visually remarkable, achingly human sci-fi masterpiece. Metacritic 84, IMDb 8.1. So everybody loves it now. But at the time, it didn't do well. I mean, box office, it only made like 33 million against a budget of 30 million.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a pretty big bomb. I kind of feel like a lot of people, you have Harrison Ford, who just came off of Raiders in 81.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously coming off of Star Wars. He was this big star. Harrison Ford, he's a very charismatic lead. But I feel like this movie, I don't know, it was kind of a different role for him because the character's not really a charismatic guy.
No, he's not. He's kind of like a Joe every day. No superpowers, he just wants to get through life one day at a time, and he drinks to help handle that, and he gets stuck in this case that he's just not really into, but he's retired, and he has pulled out of retirement, and then he's got this doozy of a case to work on.
Yeah, kind of a dick.
Yeah.
Audiences were kind of bummed, that Harrison Ford wasn't really like playing an Indiana Jones or Han Solo.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I think they were expecting this big action sci-fi spectacle, kind of like Star Wars. And this is kind of the anti-Star Wars. It's just not that. So I could see why this didn't do well at the time.
I remember when I was younger, one of the pet peeves I had I didn't like his hair.
I noticed that too. His hair's, I don't know, it's weird.
It's like an odd thing to not like about a movie, but I just thought when I first watched it, I was like, gosh, his hair doesn't look good.
You know what I also didn't like either? His the shirt he's wearing and the tie.
Uh-huh.
I didn't like that either. It bugged me. But it felt really 80s.
Yeah.
Like it's like the future. I don't know. It looked weird. I wrote some notes. We can just kind of go through the whole movie.
Okay.
And the first scene, the Voight comp test with Leon and Holden.
Yes.
Leon shoots Holden and gets blasted through the walls. Like, how thin are these walls?
Yeah, they're probably underrated drywall.
What the heck? So basically, they call Deckard in. Why does he agree to do it? They want him to find these replicants. Deckard's retired. Why does he agree to do it?
Yeah, I think it was basically he was called on the carpet by his old boss.
Did he have dirt on him or something?
Could be. I'm not sure.
I don't know. It's not very clear. I'll put Leon. His inception date is the same as my birthday, April 10th.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
So basically, he has to track down these replicants. Basically, replicants are androids. They're basically slaves. They work on off-planet colonies. They basically, I think, murder a bunch of people on Mars. They escaped. They're on Earth. Deckard has to track them down. So he goes to see Eldon Tyrell, who is the creator.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually Lloyd from The Shining.
Yes, he is.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, that's a neat thing. When you hear his voice in The Shining, you're like, hey, it's Dr. Tyrell.
Yeah,
Welcome to the Overlook.
He's got just like a weird look to him. He looks really, I don't know, creepy.
It's almost like Ian McDiarmid, who plays the Emperor. He's got a distinct voice that you recognize.
Yeah. He meets Rachel, who is his assistant. Eldon Tyrell wants him to do the Voight-Comp test, which the Voight-Comp test is basically a test that they take to see if they're human or not. I put the Voight-Comp test. The questions are ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
One of them, Deckard's basically like, you're reading a magazine. You come across a full-page nude photo of a girl. You show it to your husband. He likes it so much, he hangs it on your bedroom wall. Rachel's just like, is this testing whether I'm a replicant or a lesbian?
Uh-huh.
I mean, some of these questions are actually kind of funny.
Yeah.
They figure out that she is a replicant who doesn't know that she's a replicant.
Right.
She has memories implanted in her. I wrote down this. J.F. Sebastian. Creepy as fuck. He's a very creepy dude. He helps create the replicants. He works for Tyrell.
Mm-hmm.
He lives in this like kind of rundown apartment.
With his toys. He made
he's got these like weird like toys. He says like, they're my friends. I make them.
Right.
You got a bear and then a guy with like this long nose and a mustache. And they're like in captain's uniforms. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It was really creepy. I put unicorn dream sequence. What do we think about this? We're going to get into this, like whether Deckard's a replicant or not.
Correct. That was not in the original release.
No, it wasn't.
That scene was added in the 1992, the 20th anniversary edition.
Are you a fan of the unicorn dream sequence? Like, do you like Deckard being a replicant or?
I find it fascinating. It's you watch the original theatrical release with the voiceover, and it's a different movie with the voiceover and without the voiceover. They both have a different feel. The one without it feels a lot darker. It had and a note you may have discovered, but in the theatrical release, they have a scene where they're driving up a mountain. And it's the same sequence of the Torrance family driving up to the Overlook.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was unused stock footage from The Shining.
And so you have a happy ending versus a not-so-happy ending. And then it was like the lore was going through the years. Is Deckard a replicant or is he not? And the books, they have like an expanded universe with some books, which are pretty fascinating. But the two movies had different feels. But I was able to see the director's cut in the theater, and seeing the Blade Runner on the big screen versus the small screen was a spiritual experience for me.
Well, we'll kind of get to it at the end, but I almost feel like him being a replicant, I actually kind of feel like takes away from the whole point of the movie.
Yeah.
Because I think the point of the movie is that you have Harrison Ford, who's this, Deckard, who's just kind of like broken down, kind of depressed man who's kind of detached, and it takes his experience with these replicants, particularly Rachel, to kind of help him rediscover his humanity. I mean, I feel like if he's a replicant, I feel like it kind of defeats the purpose of the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, the theatrical cut, you're right, the theatrical cut and the final cut, I mean, they're drastically different movies all of a sudden when you add that unicorn sequence.
Right. And that was fascinating to see, because that was the era where in 92, that's when director's cuts were starting to come out and letterbox versions of movies were starting to come out. And on Laserdisc, I bought the biggest director's cut bonus scene talked about was the unicorn sequence. But the Aliens Laserdisc had the cutscenes, several cutscenes, which are badass that weren't in the theatrical release of that. So I bought a Laserdisc player to get those director's cuts.
Yeah, that's what I wrote down too. In my notes, I put this was kind of the first. I think this was like the first director's cut. I mean, that was kind of uncommon back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
to have like
definitely
an alternate cut of a movie. There's a scene where Deckard's in his apartment and he's just like looking at, I guess, the picture, and he's like zooming in. It lasts like 5 minutes, and that's kind of part of my problem with this movie. It's very slow.
Mm-hmm. There's one thing of note. You're coming off the 70s where things were like, dramas were very plotty and they took a while and there were not a lot of action. Like if you watch Dirty Harry or Magnum Force, like the old detective movies from like the 70s, and then translate them into today, they're not like fast and furious like a Jason Statham detective movie where you get in there and it's chopsocky and just it's like a good spaghetti sauce. It just ages and it gets better as it goes along. But sometimes it's like, man, I can't wait for the spaghetti sauce to get done.
Well, I was gonna say this scene goes on for like 5 minutes. It's just like, Jesus Christ, like let's get on with it.
Well, it's funny because that my friends and I, we joke around with that enhance, and in Super Troopers there's a scene in there where Ramathorn is like enhance. He's on the computer, and it's funny how that enhance sequence worked its way into pop culture.
But basically, he gets a clue from the picture. We should backtrack a little bit. He finds I guess he's in Leon's apartment and finds a scale of a snake.
Yes.
Yeah, there's pictures in his apartment. He zooms in on the picture and he tracks down this girl, Zora, at this club. And
Zora's the name of one of my cats.
Really?
Yeah.
How many cats do you have?
5.
Wait, are they all named after the replicants from Blade Runner?
No, just Zora.
Okay. If you get another cat, you should name one Roy Batty.
Yes.
But yeah, this scene was weird. Rick Deckard pretends to be a representative of the Confidential Committee of Moral Abuses. I'd like to check your room for holes. You'd be surprised what a man will do to get a glimpse of a beautiful body.
Yeah.
That scene's bizarre. Like, why is he talking like that in that goofy voice? Because she doesn't know who he is.
Right.
I thought that was ridiculous. That was really, I don't know, I guess they were trying to be funny. Very weird scene. Okay, now this scene, so what is your opinion of the whole Deckard and Rachel romance?
It's fascinating to watch I think it's like love at first sight when he sees her at Tyro's corporation, but then when he finds out she's a replicant, it's like he's back and forth, and I think he can't control his emotions, and he's like not sure what to do about it.
Well, I wrote down the apartment scene.
Mm-hmm.
It's really awkward and uncomfortable and borderline rapey. There's like jazzy music playing, so I guess it's supposed to be like sexy, but then like Deckard kisses Rachel, and then she like tries to leave, and then she like starts opening the door, and then he slams the door, so he won't let her leave, and then he shoves her against the wall, and he's like, "Now you say kiss me, say I want you." I don't know. I don't think they have good chemistry. That's one of my big problems of this movie. I don't buy the romance. I don't know. What do you think?
I really haven't given it that much thought.
But like, she's actually the emotional crux of the movie. Like, she's the one, like I said, that is supposed to like help him like rediscover his humanity. But then it's like, I don't know, like they don't really have that great of chemistry. I don't know. I think a lot of it too might be the direction that they're given. I don't know. I just think that scene's weird. The meeting between Tyrell and Roy Batty, put amazing. Roy Batty tracks down J.F. Sebastian, and J.F. Sebastian works for Tyrell. He brings him to his like headquarters. He basically wants to extend his life.
Right.
The replicants only have 4 years to live.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like it's like they put in like a fail-safe, because I guess the replicants were getting violent, so okay, we're going to make it so that you only last 4 years.
It wasn't that they were getting violent, but they would develop their own emotional responses.
Right,
and once that occurred, they couldn't be told. The void comp or anything else, you couldn't tell them from human or not.
Yeah, basically, he's saying he can't extend his life. Roy kisses Tyrell and then squishes his head.
Yeah, that was wild.
That was brutal. And then I love it because like J.F. Sebastian's just like looking there, That's pretty good acting by that actor. I love how panicked he looks.
He's like, fuck.
Yeah, and then Batty actually kills him off screen.
Yeah.
My other big kind of gripe with this movie is I feel like Deckard really doesn't do a whole lot of detective work.
Mm-hmm.
There's only that one scene really where he's in Leon's apartment.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the stuff, like what I'm about to bring up, is he goes to JF Sebastian's apartment. Like, he doesn't find out that they're staying there. Somebody tells him.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, one thing I like about 2049 is that there's a little bit more of a mystery, and there is like more. It's like, it's more of an investigation, and it's more of there's more detective work and stuff in it.
Yeah, I love 2049. That one, I was really pleased with that because, you know, you've got an iconic movie and then you make a sequel to it. And like lately, a lot of franchises have not had that success with going back to those worlds. And this one, I think, did.
Now, do you like this one better still? The original?
I'm on the fence. I like the first one because it's just, I think the visuals are just beautiful. But the second one, 2049, I'm really liking it.
I think the story has like just a little bit more going on. I think the story's more interesting. I feel like this movie, it's got a great premise. An ex-cop has to track down some androids. But I just feel like they don't really do enough with it.
Well, the making of it was very, there's a whole book called Future Noir, Making Blade Runner. And you had this book, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, written by Philip K. Dick, which is what this is based on. And then you read the book, you watch the movie, and there's a long bridge that crosses them. They had a lot of trouble with the production, with getting scripts and finding stuff that made sense. And I think finally it got to the point where they had to pull the trigger and produce something. So I think that's where a lot of maybe some of the stuff that doesn't line up came from, because the production was kind of difficult getting a script that everybody agreed to.
Have you read the book?
Yes, I have.
Are you a fan?
It's two totally different things. The book, there's no rain, and I think the rain is just one of the most beautiful things in this movie. I don't know why I'm captivated by Blade Runner rain, but it's one of the things.
Well, I think it was to kind of capture that film noir. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That the film noir tone. Yeah, I think the plot in 2049 is just a little bit more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we'll get into it a little bit, but, you know, Deckard and Rachel have this kid. So it's like, holy shit, like, replicants can, like, reproduce now.
Mm-hmm.
There might be a war, you know, once it gets out that they can reproduce.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like some twists and turns, some red herrings. I don't know. A little bit more interesting to me. But I wrote down, I love when Deckard is searching Sebastian's apartment and Priest is pretending to be one of his toys.
Right.
But this scene also is kind of stupid because she has him pinned and then she gets off of him to do a bunch of flips. She had him pinned and then he just shoots her.
Probably like a cat playing with its prey.
I guess. That made me laugh. The Roy Batty and Deckard final showdown is great.
Mm-hmm.
I like how he busts through the walls and like breaks his fingers.
Yeah. Shooting straight is not good enough.
Yeah. I like this quote. Quite an experience to live in fear, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is to be a slave. And then the Tears and Rain monologue. I mean, is this one of the best monologues ever?
It's great. I think so. And he made it up on the spot. He improv that. Yeah. When they're filming it, he improved it, and they're like, wow, keep that in.
Although it doesn't really make sense because this takes place in November 2019.
Mm-hmm.
But his inception date is January 2016. So he still has a couple more months to live. But he dies? I don't think they realized.
Well, if you watch the theatrical version versus the direct final cut, there's always been a math problem with them, the amount of replicants. Because I think in the original one, it said like, I got 5 of them walking the streets, and then there was like actually 4. There was like something wrong with the math and the dubbing.
I don't know. It's not a big deal. But yeah, I think the speech is great. Again, I mean, this kind of makes Deckard realize how valuable life is, essentially.
Right.
The last thing I wrote down, the unicorn origami.
Mm-hmm.
So in the original cut, the theatrical cut, I think the purpose of this, basically, I know you're here. I'm going to let you guys go.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the final cut, yeah, I know you guys are here, but also I know what your thoughts are.
Right.
Implying that Deckard's a replicant.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't think it's necessary that he's a replicant, personally.
It's never really resolved either. It's still one of those things that's like up to your interpretation.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, too. In 2049, it's still kind of up in the air. They don't really address it, which was, I think, a smart move.
I mean, that's one thing that I don't need to be fed everything in a movie. You know, sometimes it's good to have some stuff to think and work through. So just in your face, you know.
But I will say, if he is a replicant, is he an older model? I mean, I guess he doesn't have the 4-year lifespan. And he also doesn't have the superhuman strength. So he's like a shitty replicant?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it doesn't really make sense that he is a replicant because he can't do some of the things they can do. So, yeah, like we said, I think technically there's like 7 different versions.
Yeah, I know there's a bunch. I know of at least 4. The work print is actually interesting to watch because they have a sequence in there with Holden, Deckard talking to Holden when he's in this iron lung type thing.
Yeah, so the work print, I think it has an alternate title sequence.
Yeah.
So the opening crawl is a little different. I think no unicorn daydream sequence. There's no happy ending. Then you got the U.S. theatrical cut. So basically, poor test screenings.
Right.
I guess a lot of audiences were confused as to what was going on. Although I think it's pretty clear what's going on. The studio made them add, which Harrison Ford apparently hated.
Yes.
Rumor has it he purposely read the lines terribly, hoping that they would not use it.
Yeah, I remember hearing that too.
Yeah, I actually went on YouTube and watched all the scenes. It's pretty bad. The dialogue's not very good. I mean, a lot of the stuff, they're just explaining what is happening on screen. It's not very necessary. But yeah, so you got for U.S. theatrical cut, the voiceover, the happy ending, where basically they just go to the country, Deckard and Rachel. So what do you think of are you a fan of the voiceover or?
I mean, that's what first time I saw it was with a voiceover, so that's what I cut my teeth on. So I like it, but I also like it without it because, like I was saying, it almost feels like 2 different movies with the voiceover and without it.
I mean, I don't love the voiceovers, but I kind of see why they would want to add it because I feel like those old detective movies, those film noir movies, they had voiceover.
Yeah, that's what I took it as.
And apparently in the original script, there was voiceover. Harrison Ford and Ridley Scott were kind of arguing, like Harrison hated it. So Ridley was like, fine, we're cutting it. And then after the poor test screenings, they had to add it back in.
Mm-hmm.
International theatrical release. Basically, it just had more violence that they cut.
Mm-hmm.
There's the director's cut, which it's not really the director's cut because he was off doing another movie, Ridley Scott, and basically he just gave them notes on what to fix.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a huge difference between the final cut and the director's cut. I think
like special effects and
I think I know there is one shot where Roy Batty, he is throwing up the dove,
mm-hmm.
and the background doesn't match what's going on. So I think they like went in and fixed that. Yeah, a lot of it, like you said, was just kind of like just different shots, effects stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, those are the different cuts. I mean, like I said, I have all of them on Blu-ray. I will probably never watch all of them. Have you seen all the cuts?
I've seen like I think I've seen 3 of them.
Okay.
Maybe 4, because I got a VHS tape of the international release. But like the scene with the stuff that was added was so minuscule, I don't remember it. But I've seen the theatrical release, the director's cut, and the final cut. So
we're gonna go into trivia. You probably know a lot about this stuff. Dustin Hoffman. was the original choice to play Deckard.
Wow, that would have been crappy.
He left because they had some creative differences. I haven't seen a lot of Dustin Hoffman. I've seen The Graduate. In that movie, he's kind of this like awkward, kind of neurotic college student. So based off of that, I couldn't see him playing like this kind of hard-boiled detective.
No, I couldn't either. I couldn't see that.
They considered Tommy Lee Jones, Gene Hackman, Sean Connery, Jack Nicholson, Paul Newman, Clint Eastwood, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Al Pacino, Burt Reynolds, Scott Glenn, Robert Duvall, Judd Hirsch, Peter Falk, Nick Nolte, and Christopher Walken. Do you think any of those would have been good?
No.
If you cast Arnold Schwarzenegger, it's a completely different movie.
Yeah, it'd be. Are you a replicant?
Are you a replicant? Tommy Lee Jones, no. Gene Hackman, he did The French Connection.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like a tough detective. I could see that. Sean Connery, I'm gonna go with no. Jack Nicholson, I mean, he did Chinatown.
Right.
So I wouldn't hate it. Paul Newman, I'm going to go no. Clint Eastwood, I think, could do it.
Yeah.
Al Pacino, I think Al Pacino could do it. Burt Reynolds, I'm going to go with no. Scott Glenn, I don't know, not a big enough draw. I feel like Robert Duvall, yeah, I think he could do it. Judd Hirsch,
no.
Peter Falk, no. Nick Nolte. Nick Nolte would be interesting because he kind of is Deckard in real life.
Yeah,
just like
yeah.
This, like,
kind of disheveled and slovenly.
Disheveled, like an hardcore alcoholic.
Right.
Christopher Walken, no.
Hey,
I would say.
get the replicants over here. You want to take this for a contest?
Apparently, also, I got another one. Martin Sheen was offered the role, but he turned it down because I guess he had just come off of Apocalypse Now. And he was like, and he was exhausted because the production of that movie was crazy.
No kidding. That was it's amazing they ever got that movie done.
But basically, they picked Harrison Ford because I guess Steven Spielberg was like, "Hey, I've worked with this guy. We just did Raiders. He was great in that." So they went with Harrison Ford. I thought this was interesting. Martin Scorsese. He met with Philip K. Dick in 1969 to discuss the possibility of adapting the novel into a movie.
Wow.
It fell through, but that would have been interesting. I feel like I think at that point, Martin Scorsese wasn't really established yet. I think he really just done like maybe a couple of movies. It'd be cool to see Martin Scorsese do a sci-fi movie.
That would be interesting. I'd watch that.
Oh, it'd be cool if he got like Joe Pesci to be like Deckard,
the Emperor of the Universe. Hey, I want to get these replicants. You think I'm funny, baddie?
Funny how? Okay, apparently at first, Ridley Scott declined the project because he was working on Dune. I guess there was creative differences, script problems with that movie. Decided to do this one. But yeah, Dune. It's interesting. They're making a new one that's coming out this year.
Yes.
That was directed by the guy who did 2049.
Yes.
So I'm really excited.
I am too.
I think before Dune comes out, the new one, I want to do an episode on the David Lynch movie from the 80s. I think that would be interesting. I've actually never seen it.
That one has a couple versions floating around too.
Yeah.
I saw that in the theater.
Oh, you saw Dune in the theater?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like that movie?
I do, but after reading the books, it's like, it's just, I love the visuals of it. The plot is a little off, but the visuals are just, I always liked.
Some people would say that about Blade Runner. Actually, the term Blade Runner was not in the novels.
No, it was not.
There was a book called The Blade Runner. Ridley Scott liked the name, so he bought the rights to the title, not the screenplay or the book. Yeah, so he just thought it was a cool name, and thus Blade Runners became people who hunted down replicants.
One thing that's funny that was, I guess about maybe 5 or 10 years ago, they had the Pistorius guy who's the Blade Runner killer. I was like, Blade Runner? Why do they call him Blade Runner? But he had no legs. He had those blades he would run with. So it was a big trial. I was like, why do they call him Blade Runner?
Wait, you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious. Look it up, Pistorius.
He had blades as legs?
Yeah.
And he could run?
Yeah. He was like a world-class runner.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I think his girlfriend got murdered and he went on trial for it.
Holy shit. That'd be a good movie.
Yeah.
Maybe. As we said before, Ridley Scott and Harrison Ford had a lot of disagreements about the script. Ford hated the voiceover. Ford found working with Scott really frustrating. He was used to working with directors like Steven Spielberg, Francis Ford Coppola, and those directors were really hands-on. They liked to give them input about their characters. Mm-hmm. And Scott, that wasn't him. Basically, he was kind of concerned about with the sets and the pictures. Yeah, I think Scott's whole thing was Ford's a professional actor. He doesn't need his input. Mm-hmm. So a lot of frustration there. Ford, he's against the idea of Deckard being a replicant. Mm-hmm. I agree. He said it undercut the human story of Deckard discovering his lost humanity. I completely agree.
I agree with that.
Rutger Hauer agreed completely with Ford. According to Ford, Ridley Scott and he agreed prior to shooting that Deckard was not a replicant. But then Scott went and shot it to imply that he could be, so Ford was pissed. Ridley Scott was interviewed in 2006, and they asked him, who's the biggest pain in the ass you've ever worked with? And he was like, oh, it's got to be Harrison Ford. So I think they get along now, but at the time they hated each other.
Right.
Philip K. Dick. He died 3 months before this movie came out, but he actually was able to see some of the footage before it came out. And mm-hmm. He said, he was like, wow, that's exactly how I imagined it. But it's kind of funny, though. I found this out. Ridley Scott actually never read the book. That's interesting.
That is.
Oh, I thought this was interesting. An early idea was that when Roy Batty kills Tyrell, he finds out that Tyrell is a replicant. That was an early idea floating around. I guess basically he had died and they made a replicant version of him to kind of keep up the appearance that he was alive in order to kind of keep the company's stocks from devaluating.
I think I remember hearing that.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought this was kind of interesting. You probably might have noticed this. So Gaff is the guy, I guess, who works at the police station. He's the one who gets Harrison Ford
Edward
at
James
the beginning
Olmos.
of the movie. Yeah, because his whole thing is he likes to play with origami. He folds a chicken the first time. That implies that Deckard is afraid to hunt the replicants. That's when Deckard's like, no, I don't want to do this. Mm-hmm. Later, he makes a man with an erection, implying Deckard is getting excited about being a Blade Runner again. And then finally, he does a unicorn, implying that Deckard is dreaming about running away with Rachel, and he knows she won't live. Of course, they changed that, but I thought that was interesting.
That is very interesting. I never thought of that.
I got some categories for you.
Okay.
What is your favorite scene?
I'd have to say the Roy Batty sequence, and then the scene where he shoots Zora. Not because it's the violence, but just the poetry of the scene, the music playing, and she's trying to escape for his life, and he's like, he doesn't really want to shoot her, but he does. And it's just like that, and then the opening sequence is just, I can just watch that all day with the music and the stuff flying into the air. It's just
I would say I like the Voicom test with Rachel. I like that scene and everything leading up to it when they were actually in the floating car and they're coming up on, I guess, the pyramids.
Yeah.
Of the Tyrell headquarters.
Yeah.
That looks incredible.
It does. And
that was all miniatures. And it looks amazing. Yeah, so that and then the actual the back and forth between Rachel and Harrison Ford, the Voicom test. I like all that stuff. What's the worst scene in this movie?
I would have to say the Taffy Lewis scene where he's in that kind of bar. It's just he's like, "Come on down for a drink." Oh, it's not my kind of place, Mr. Deckard.
I would say, I don't know. There's actually a lot of scenes I don't like in this movie. I think the whole scene in the apartment with Rachel and Deckard is weird.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that scene. I also, when he's interrogating Zora and he talks in that weird accent, I don't know. That's kind of dumb. I don't know. I think I'm going to go with, the apartment scene. I just thought it was just like kind of rapey and just really awkward. I'm going to go with that.
Okay.
Best quote. I think this is an easy one.
I would say the Roy Batty, I've seen things.
Yeah. Tears. I almost said Tears in Heaven. That's an Eric Clapton song.
Yeah.
No, Tears in Rain speech.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I would go with that. Although I do like the line, replicants are like any other machine. They're either a benefit or a hazard.
Mm-hmm.
If they're a benefit, it's not my problem. But I'm going to go with Tears in Rain.
Yeah.
Best unintentional comedic moment.
And when Roy Batty's like, "Can't get it up."
When's that party?
It's when he's fighting. He's like chasing Deckard.
Oh, he does say that. Yeah, that's funny. Well, the scene with Zora, to go back to that again, I hate to keep going back to that scene where he talks like in a weird accent. Is that supposed to be funny? I'm not sure. I think I'm going to go with that.
Mm-hmm.
Best performance.
I would have to say, I think Roy Batty was good.
What's his name? Rutger Hauer?
Yeah.
I think he steals the show.
Mm-hmm.
I wish he was in the movie more, actually.
Yeah, they had some good scenes, like the part where they go to see the guy who makes their eyes.
That's a good scene. Yeah, he's got like I don't know. He's got a villainous swag about him, but he's also, you sympathize with his predicament.
Mm-hmm. Not an easy man to see.
Yeah, that's good. I think I'm going to go with Rutger Hauer. I think he steals the show. I really wish there were more scenes with him, honestly.
Mm.
Worst performance.
I'm not sure.
I don't know. Sean Young. Not that she's a bad actress. I just feel like maybe it's the directing.
Some parts did seem cardboardy for people in the movie. I can't really draw on this one because I think they all did pretty good. No one stood out as the worst performer of Blade Runner for me.
So this is closing thoughts, and then we're going to rate the movie.
Okay.
Out of 5. So, give me your final thoughts and rating.
I just think it's a timeless movie that it's a deep movie. It gets you thinking. I love the visuals. I love the music. The plot is confusing, and but it just gets. It's like a mystery. It's like just each time I watch it, it's just something new. And it's one it's a movie. If it's on, I'll watch it. I enjoy it a lot, and I give it probably 4 out of 5. Yeah,
I would actually give it the same rating. I like this movie. I don't love it. I don't know if I could say it's a masterpiece like a lot of people claim it is. I think the premise is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I just wish they did more with it. I wish there was more action. I think it's very slow, but I would say it's worth watching alone for the visuals. I think this movie came out almost 40 years ago.
Right.
And I would say it still looks better than most movies today.
Yeah.
So visually, it's amazing. It's also a very influential movie. I mean, it kind of started that whole future noir look, that kind of dirty, like lived in future.
Yes.
I mean, without this movie, you don't have The Matrix. You don't have Dark City. Mm-hmm. I'm not a big anime fan, but like you don't have Akira.
Mm-hmm.
While I don't think it's perfect, I do think it's worth watching. I mean, it deserves its spot in history. I mean,
it does.
I can see why it does have the cult following it has. I think Rutger Hauer is amazing. So I'm going to give this one 4 out of 5. I will say, Blade Runner 2049, I will give a 5 out of a 5.
Yeah, I would too. That
because, like I said, I think there's just a little bit more going on. Also, like visually, there's a little bit more variety.
movie.
They're in that desert in Las Vegas. Like that looks really cool.
And I like the colors, how they use the colors
Yeah.
for the different sequences.
Well, that was Roger Deakins. He did the cinematography. He won an Oscar for that. Also, I feel like Blade Runner 2049. I don't think you necessarily have to see the first one to like get it or to like it.
It'd be like missing out on some key points, but I really think it does. It can stand on its own. I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe a little bit more context, but so yeah, that was Blade Runner. Did we miss anything?
I think that 2019 we don't have flying cars.
I know that's disappointing.
It's like when in November 2019 I posted, well, it's here and there's no flying cars.
Yeah. Also, Back to the Future Part 2 promised flying cars. We didn't get that either. Well, hey, maybe 2049 we'll get flying cars.
Definitely. That's more real. Yeah, it's like 2049 is 30 years away. So when Blade Runner came out, it was like 40 years ago. So got to give it another 30.
All right. Well, I think that's a wrap.
Well, thanks a lot, Barrett, for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back on for the thing.
Yes.
I'm thinking October. I think it'd be perfect for around Halloween.
Yeah, definitely. So it's another one where we're trying to figure out who's human.
Hey. Yeah, that's crazy. They have a lot of similar themes, and they came out the same day. All right. Well, thanks again. And
thank you, Barrett.
I'll see everyone next week.
Sounds good, buddy. Bye.